and welcome back. You're here at the Man Cave, the Tiki Bar, the Underground Bunker, Ground Zero. Congratulations, you made it to week 5. That means we are on our way to a different topic, but not today. We've been going through the what, who, why, and now when. When do bad things happen? We're navigating through these toughest seasons. That's our main topic. This is not a universal, there's not a universal answer to this question of when do bad things happen. Tough situations can occur at any time. However, when they happen, it can help often point to the source or the motivation. That's something I want you to think about as we go through this. Tough situations can occur when you're on the mountaintop. In my experience, it is often when I'm having a mountaintop experience with God that I receive these attacks from people of ill will or bad character. However, knowing where I am spiritually at that time gives me a great peace that these attacks are not from God. Nor is he trying to correct my way at the time, but rather some other spirit of envy, jealousy, or control is at play. As a note, speaking of control, beware of the narcissist. If this type of person is in your midst and they recognize that you are thriving, they will usually come after you. Listen carefully. Speaking up is very dangerous with a narcissist present. In my experience, when telling the truth lands you in trouble, you can be sure there is some corruption and malfeasance at hand. Let's talk about a parable for a second. Matthew 13 is where the parable of the sowing of the seeds, and I'm not going to go through the whole parable. I want to point out something as you read through it, and you might notice this next time. This parable describes the enemy sowing weeds after the good seed starts to mature and grow grain. This is exactly when the enemy strikes because you or I are bearing fruit. The enemy will find any willing human who has a bitter root, hurt, or something that has not been dealt with. And I'm going to use that word hurt for a second. Have you heard that overused saying, hurt people hurt people? Well, what that means, if you haven't heard it, people that have not dealt with deep-seated hurt will often lash out and try to cause others pain, and they don't even realize that that's the root of it. They need to get some help. If you have that, please get some help, get some counseling. If I have it, I need the same thing. I'm not going to point the finger at anybody else. I just want to show you that that is how it works too many times. Now, tough situations can occur when you are also not just on the mountain, but in the valley. Often in times of trial, testing, or deep discouragement, these attacks can come. This narrative can be seen all throughout the Bible. You'll see it in Job's life, how he's just kicked when he's down. You'll see it with Joseph. He's sold into slavery, and then he's accused of being with Potiphar's wife, and then he's thrown into the dungeon, and just one after another. And of course, Jesus, before he starts his ministry, he goes into the wilderness. He fasts for 40 days, and he is then tested. And the enemy thinks he's the most vulnerable at that time, and he would be, but he is God, and he passed the test. Praise the Lord, for our benefit. Now, this is very important. The valley. The valley is not meant for destruction, but for purification of of the person's character, or the beginning of their great mission. Now, even in the valley of the shadow of death, this is not a place for fear, but a place where God is intimately present for comfort and for guidance. I'm going to say that again. Even in the valley of the shadow of death, this is not a place for fear, but a place where God is intimately present for comfort and guidance. Tough situations occur when you are 3, in willful rebellion. You're going the wrong direction, and maybe you're engaging in habitual sin, disobedience, and that's when this divine discipline can occur. And yes, well, God is long suffering. He is. But eventually, your sin or my sin will find you out. You can't fool God. I've said that many times. If you foolishly want to find out where God's caboose on the long suffering train ends, I don't advise it, but you go right ahead. Now, speaking of foolishness, number 4, tough situations can occur when we are just foolish and meddling in situations that we shouldn't get ourselves into. Proverbs 26:17 is a great verse. It says, like one who grabs a stray dog by the ears is someone who rushes into a quarrel not their own. And then, of course, bad things happen. You've seen so many things on the internet where these people should mind their own business, move along, and they get involved in something that becomes really bad. Now, my conclusion today is about discipline, God's discipline. And you'll see a lot of different verses, but I'm going to kind of hone in just a little bit on Hebrews chapter 12. And starting with verse 4, have you completely forgotten this word of encouragement that addresses you as a father would address his son? And it says, and I'm going to just pause right there. It says, this Hebrews 12 is quoting from Proverbs chapter 3, verse 11. That's why it says. And what does it say? It says, my son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you. Because the Lord disciplines those he loves. He chastens everyone he accepts as his son. God disciplines us for our good, in order that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful later on. However, it produces, tie this all together, a harvest. Remember we were talking about the seeds? It produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. So just when you are going through a tough situation, and when are these going to happen? Well, try to analyze it. Was it when I was doing really well and I got just attacked? Or was I in the valley and the Lord is going to meet me there and raise me up? Or am I just wandering foolishly, getting into places I shouldn't be? But either way, God will discipline his children if that's what is necessary, because he loves you and you are his legitimate children. So be comforted by that, and take the time to go back through these different videos over the last few weeks if you've forgotten, and I hope they encourage you. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time.